Okay, reading the description, what I'm doing, I'm going to give it a good old start here, and it's probably just going to be me talking for about a couple hours, although I might pop in for questions, because I'm going to have to, that'll simulate taking questions in the actual presentation. Again, this is just for, I'm normally good enough at public speaking, as you probably know on these streams. I just ramble on and on and on, but I'm going to get going here. I just want to let everybody sort of check in, and I'll pop in every so often. All right. So I'm gonna start with a brief PowerPoint, and then it gets on to basically just photos. Do I even need to do this? All right. Again, this is simple. It's just stuff for showing for people in a town hall. Okay, here we go. So I'm not sure how to quickly say this, but it's a Pittsburgh Line signal documentation project. Started in 2004, culminated in 2019. Pittsburgh Line, of course, being the Conrail Pittsburgh Line, now currently operated by NS, originally constructed by the Pennsylvania Railroad. Scope is going to, like I said, it's going to be the current NS, formerly Conrail Pittsburgh Line, Milepost 105, which is CP Harris, to Milepost 353, which used to be CP West Pitt. Although, honestly, I'm going to be extending it through to Penn Interlocking, which is like Fort Wayne Line Milepost 2. It's going to be covering every interlocking and every automatic block signaling location. Specifically those with Pennsylvania Railroad style position lights and or Conrail style color lights. I mean, you're going to have a bunch of NS stuff mixed in, but I've generally been able to source, there's at the point where they get replaced, I'm going to be using photos before the replacements. So this is designed to be showing off those signals, not newer stuff. This scope of this entire project was to document the signaling practices, technology, and structures present on the former Pennsylvania Railroad main line, and which have now been replaced by the general homogeneous, what's pretty much going up all across the country: solid state, stainless steel, plastic, etc. Anyway, the signaling practices that were present on the line, even up through 2019, included a mix of PRR vintage things from the 1940s or thereabouts, Penn Central era, from a lot of it's dated from the early 1970s. Not a lot, but that there was some stuff from there. The early Conrail era, this is specifically the western part of the route, and I'm going to go through that as I'm going to identify what era comes from what. The mid-Conrail era, which is 86 through 89, this is more the middle division, the eastern part of the route, which was resignaled then. Finally, the late Conrail era, this is a mix of replacements in the late 90s and some resignaling between, isolated resignaling between Altoona and Johnstown. All of these are significant in their own way, although, the technology becomes, the closer you get to today, the more the technology looks the same, but Conrail was still unique in a lot of different ways. Like I said, the timeline of the photos when they were taken starts off in 2004, where I did an Alto tower visit. I think note to people who watch my streams, you might have seen the edits on the Alto tower photos. Then there were line surveys via the Pennsylvanian in 2006, 2008, and 2009. And also I should note there, I should make an edit. Also 2018. The 2012 was the Altoona area resignaling, where I went up to the Altoona area to get photos then. In 2013 is when NS actually petitioned to remove, when the FRA petitioned to remove the wayside automatic signals hit, and at that point, I was on notice that this was going to happen. It might have been 2012, but it was somewhere 2012, 2013. It was after the Altoona resignaling project, which ended in 2012. And then finally, that led to the 2014 through 2019, which was the all-out documentation effort with multiple road trips and 2 additional survey attempts, one of which was unsuccessful due to a private car. The results of this effort, out of the 38 Conrail interlockings, I was able to fully document 22, partially document 6, and survey 10. Survey basically means I was on a train going through it, and I took as many pictures out the back as I can. Again, there were at least 3 or 4 distinct surveys that I was able to get useful photos out of. Out of the 82 automatic signal locations, I was only able to fully document 38, but it was 33 out of 59 position lit at the time when I was doing the survey. Everything else I was able to capture from train 43. Trips, 25 in total. 4 of these were via trains 43 and 42. There is a guest trip in there. I'll talk about that later. And there was a fall foliage excursion that allowed me to capture stuff in the Harrisburg area. I did total it all up. It's not an exact photo, but I basically had around or maybe in excess of 14,000 total photos, plus multiple hours of video. Some of those were shot from the back of the Pennsylvanian. Other ones were line side, capturing sounds of the signaling, which was a lot of electromechanical relay sounds that I was able to capture as well. Those are, if you are currently watching on the YouTube stream, those are available on the channel. The presentation is going to basically consist of, I'm going to go all the way from CP Harris to CP Penn in about 200 photos. So I've filtered down 14,000 to 200. I'm going to be going for completeness here. So some of the photos will be of lower quality. I had a lot of good photos, but I'm only going to be, I want to hit everything. So some of them are going to be grainy or a little soft. I apologize for those, but I want to give everybody a good understanding of what it looked like. I'm going to be sticking to Conrail era terminology, changes that NS made to signal designations, interlocking names, signal rules, NORAC rules. I'm going to be using Conrail era terminology, so just be aware of that. No need to correct unless you want to correct something for Conrail era. I'm trying to remain consistent for the historical perspective, because ultimately the Pittsburgh Line was a Conrail era project. Feel free to interrupt with questions. Anyone watching the stream, I will check in occasionally to simulate this. But just be aware, I am going to be planning to address certain topics at specific points. So it's something that might not come up in the beginning, I've scheduled to come up later. And just be aware there are some guest photos in here by some folks, especially I got someone who did a survey via cab ride. So not all of them are mine. For those of you who are involving the drinking game, every time you spot the Pennsylvanian, take a drink. If you want to do the advanced version of the drinking game, every time you spot a -9 C44, take a drink, and then have an ambulance on standby. All right, I think that's everything. Yep, that's the end of the slides. So I'm going to be going to the photos now. I'm going to do a quick check of who's on the live stream. Someone. Hey everybody. All right, I'm going to the photos. I'm really trying to time this. So again, if you have questions, throw them in. I'll stop every so often to answer questions. Again, that just gives me an idea of, because the real people I'm sure are going to have questions as well. So, oops, don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm actually going to use the rare full screen mode on this application, if it lets me do it. There we go. We are beginning at the west end of CP Harris. This was in CP Harris was, of course, resignaled by Conrail in 1992 to 1992 Conrail standards, which at the time preferred small target Michigan Central style searchlights. In the actual presentation, I will have a laser pointer, at least they've been promised one, but here I'm going to be using the mouse to circle things. So Harris was sort of beyond the range of when Conrail had stopped installing new position lights, but they were still installing interesting signals. Especially here, they made use of a PRR era signal catenary bridge as a cost-saving measure as opposed to a gantry. In this photo, we have an ES44AC number 8037, and behind it, you can't really see. Again, I can zoom in on these, but because in the actual presentation I can't. Actually, I don't think I can zoom. These are 820 by whatever. In the back, we have a standard cab C40-9 number 8790. These have since been converted to the AC44 C6M super, AC blah 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 bland cabs. So anyway, first automatic signal is going to be the only one between CP Harris and CP Rockville. The 107 automatics, which were just east of the fuel pad. These might be, you might, I'm not sure. I recognize these. I remember when I took my first trip out to Chicago in 1990. Well, maybe Chicago was like 1999, and I remember passing by these signals, and it was like, oh wow, it's like, wow, actual position lights, because you didn't get that stuff further east. But anyway, we have a whole bunch of Dash 9s sitting there in the fuel pad. I've heard somewhere that this fuel pad, this is a fuel pipeline that either goes from here over to Enola or goes from Enola to here. But anyway, these intermediate signals support both CP Harris on the back or CP Rockville here. These are the distance, and you can see here for Rockville, these can support both approach medium or approach slow. Approach slow being for, I'm not sure what the approach slow indication would be, probably something for diverging at CPY, but I think I'm not sure where that slow speed route is. Here we have CP Rockville. With a C44-9, 9223, and a 70 Ace 1037. Waiting for it. This is taken from the back of an Amtrak full foliage train, and we can see the four-track, what used to be a four-track modern-style signal bridge. This was put in the 1988. Actually, the Harrisburg terminal was the last thing re-signaled in the 1986 to 89 resignaling program, so this probably would have gone in closer to like 1989. Fortunately, by this point, NS had taken one of the signals off the gantry and replaced it with a Darth Vader mast to gain a little more headspace on the yard track. These are the tracks coming out of the Harrisburg Intermodal Terminal, which used to be called the Harrisburg Relay Yard. So you can see this was in a fall foliage train when on the Reading Line one where they let people stand in the rear vestibule. The other side of CP Rockville, we have these again. These new masts were installed fresh by Norfolk Southern in the early 2000s. Now the reason NS is putting up new masts is first they had to reconfigure the interlocking. It used to be that there were 3 tracks across the bridge, but one of them was coming in from CP Hip, so it would everything would join here. Problem is they had a windstorm which blew a whole bunch of containers into the Susquehanna River, and at that point Conrail/NS thought it would just be better to eliminate that third track, bring it in at the other side of the bridge. Creates a little bit of a bottleneck, but not really, and then the Rockville Bridge would only have 2 tracks. These masts, this originally had a 3-track cantilever, so when they eliminated the third track, they just replaced them with these masts. Now, the reason they went with these position light style masts, I'm not entirely sure, but a lot of the times, if you were going from position light to color, you have to put it in the bulletin order. You have to do a bunch of additional testing. So this was probably the cheapest thing they could do without having to modify the interlocking. You'll see this a lot, where you'll get a lot of odd choices of replacements simply because of the testing requirements or the recertification or whatever you have to do to meet FRA standards. I will note that, oh crud, I forgot something on the previous file. There are 2 types of position lights. There's the USNS supplied ones, which is what the PRR did, and then there are these, which the Safe Train. These are the sort of the more modern, started being available in the 80s. You can tell those from the front by having these lines of screws that create like a cross pattern. They were designed to be a little more modular, a little more cheaper. Here we have a 70 Mac passing the new CP Mary signal. CP Mary was what was installed on main track number 1 when that third track was eliminated. I'm not really getting into Mary. It's not really a Conrail interlocking, or at least wasn't in its current form. But I had this wonderful picture here of a 70 Mac, SD80 Mac 7211 crossing over the bridge with a Reading Blue Mountain and Northern Anthracite coal train. Early one morning. Very nice picture. As there used to be an intermediate between CP Banks and CP Mary/CP Rockville. That was again eliminated in that sort of intermediate resignaling point in the by Conrail or NS at some point. So that doesn't exist anymore. I don't have any photos of it. But CP Banks was the old sort of processing interlocking as stuff leaving the Harrisburg terminal or entering and either going to Enola or Harrisburg. Conrail basically reduced it to 4 tracks. The 2 center tracks are your Enola yard leads, and the outer tracks are the main tracks 1 and 2. This signal bridge used to support probably can support 8 tracks under it. I don't know exactly. I don't have the exact diagram today, but it was just an interesting thing. NS has decided to replace it. They're getting rid of it and just going to be replacing it with dwarfs and masts. Here we have the other end of CP Banks with its sort of I'm going to call it iconic because it's very well known. Three-mast, three-signal signal bridge. And here we have underneath it is, sorry for the, this is one of those quality issues. Often when you're shooting signals, you don't get, you're shooting up towards the sky, so you have to sort of blow out the exposure. But when the train comes by and you're trying, you might forget to switch it back, so then everything gets sort of blown out. In front, we have a SD70M number 7680. But behind it is Heritage nickel plate Heritage unit number 8100, an ES44AC. If you want a better view of the same signal bridge, here it is. And they said this is well known because instead of mounting the signals on the truss part, they're sort of elevated up above. And again, this makes it sort of distinctive. This was all done, of course, during the Conrail era. Here we have two tracks. Number 2 farthest away. Number 2 is going to be north. Number 1 towards the south, but I might get that wrong, but hopefully that's right. And then this the nearest track is a controlled siding. This was all reduced from initially 4 tracks and then 3 tracks in the early Conrail era, and then finally in the late 80s it became 2 bidirectional tracks. The trains involved, we have another two C44-9Ws, number 9721 and number 9041. But the cool part here is we can see a approach slow displaying on the siding exit. Conrail, specifically because of the position lights, had a number of bulletin orders, so you could actually diverge over both slow approach, medium approach, and approach slow, approach medium, and approach limited, as long as the preceding signal was not clear. So you could go approach medium, diverge, and then you diverge it again at the next interlocking. This is because there's no way on the PRR signals to display a medium approach medium. Today, the NS now can do that, and they are doing that in a lot of locations. They're allowing for more medium approach medium and now medium approach slow. But here, a train one train had passed. The dispatcher then lined another train coming out of the siding, and as the first train advanced, this was able to go through a signal progression from restricting to medium approach, to approach slow, to finally, I'm not sure if it did approach medium, but eventually it got to medium clear. Here we have what was known as the Cove Signals. This was a bidirectional, this is our first automatic signal after Harrisburg. This was replaced. This was a 3-track position light signal bridge that was replaced around 2005 with this Darth Vader structure here. So I wasn't that got replaced before I had any opportunity to photo it. This is actually shown after the resignaling project had begun. I don't mean by begun I mean not just dropping the equipment, but actually cutting in the new signaling. The new signaling is going to be cab signals, of course, without fixed wayside signals with 1-block signal intervals. So because of this was a brand new piece, this was a fairly new and modern piece of equipment, NS just turned the heads, and they have not yet dismantled it. So here we can see an ES44DC number 7673 passing under the turned heads. This would have been in the fall of 2018. After they'd started the cutting it in basically segment by segment. So it took about a year to get all the way across the state. They just finished up the project in September 22nd, 2019. Here we have the 3-track signal bridge at CP Cannon, which was sort of a replacement for the older view interlocking. Cannon for Duncannon, Pennsylvania. Conrail typically names interlockings after streets or the towns that they're in. This is similar to the style and rust color of the bridge at Cove. Usually when NS or Conrail was replacing bridges, it was probably due to some sort of imminent structural failure. But this one made it all the way through. And we can see NS loves its cantilevers. CSX will put up signal bridges, but NS loves just having the cantilevers. I'm sure there's some sort of cost saving involved with it. Maybe this is a signal bridge. No, this is a signal bridge, so I need to remember that for the actual presentation. But they love their cantilevers. Also note, unless otherwise noted, most signals were upgraded in the 1989 resignaling project to limited speed. So these are going to generally be doing a limited clear or an approach limited where applicable. Not that it really matters, but I just thought you should know that. That's 40 mile an hour for freight, 45 for passenger. Other side of CP Cannon, these signals were actually replaced fairly recently with Darth Vader hoods and then replaced for the resignaling project. But here's what they looked like back in 2009, showing a restricting the train had already passed, and then the dispatcher had fleeted it. And the traffic on the Pittsburgh line tends to go in waves. It means you'll get a whole fleet of eastbounds and westbounds, and then nothing for a bunch of hours. So signals were fleeted, and as soon as the other freight train cleared up on the block, we got a restricting pulled up on the home signal. These are replaced for some reason. I know it was fairly popular with photographers, so they might have just been trying to ruin the photo op. But otherwise, I have no idea why these mass signals would have been replaced by color lights early when they were. These are replaced around probably 2012, 2013. First automatic west of Cannon, the 121, Milepost 121 automatic, is in the, you can basically see, is here in the view of the U.S. Route 15 bridge. So this is on the Judiana, but really before it sort of leaves the Susquehanna Valley. These signals are in somewhat of their original configuration, at least in this direction, which would have been a two single direction tracks in each, single direction in each direction, which then got changed to, you can see the gap right there when it was probably 3 tracks with a single bidirectional track, and then they said in the late 80s it was converted to 2 CTC bidirectional tracks. The new signaling infrastructure is right there for the cab signals, and then it said all this would have been probably taken down. Here we have the signals at Milepost 124. Again, a slightly different view in the winter. One of the interesting things, one of the major things that has affected the way that signals are presented these days is that prior to around 1986, it was actually, signals had to be mounted on the right-hand side of the track that they governed. Any exceptions needed a full FRA approval process. This is because prior to this time, that time, long hood diesels and steam locomotives required, that was the way things were run, and you needed to have the signal visible to the engineer who sat on the right. By the 1980s, it was clear that cabs were having bi-directional, as in to the left and to the right views. So the FRA in 1986 basically said you could have left-mounted signals anywhere you wanted. So in this, there was a brief window of time between 1986 and about 1989, 1990, where Conrail then switched to using, where applicable, mast-mounted position lights, bidirectional position lights, these being the first example we're going to see. And also we can see the Conrail Classic Core 10 weathering steel relay hut, and then the newer stainless steel huts there. Again, just another problem where some of the old, you had slightly more innovative materials back in the day because stainless steel used to be expensive, and now they can stamp it out like Pop-Tarts. Here we have the 120, the 162, Milepost 162 signals, these in the eastbound direction. Conrail's numbering, at least in the later signaling schemes, was milepost, your milepost, followed by track number, track 2 to the north, track 1 to the south, and then direction, east or west, and that could be north or south depending on the railroad. Fun fact, when I was out at these signals, they were actually, this was the week, literally the day before the signal cut over, they had the signal crews out, and these are all approach lit, that's why they're dark, so only when there's a train in the meeting mile on either side of it will the signals light up. But because the signal crews are out, these signals are randomly lighting up and then basically popping up clear, going to approach, going to stop, going back to clear, turning off, turning back on again. All sorts of weirdness was happening at this day. Again, this was been in the early, probably October of 2018. Also, October 2018, we have the 1Milepost 128 color light signals. Now, these are Conrail. These are 1990s vintage Conrail color lights. You will see these. Now, Conrail resignaled this whole thing in 1986 through 1989. Certain points of it, they kept the signal or PR signal bridges. You can see the footings for the PR signal bridge there and right there. At any point during the Conrail era, where a signal bridge began maybe exhibiting structural problems, and again, I don't know exactly where they would rust or fail or whatever. I found a photo of this, and this was one of the very early vintage signal bridges, but there are ones that lasted all the way through 2019. But either way, Conrail would yank down the bridge, they'd keep the same signal logic. They wouldn't put in a new hut, but then they'd put in their Conrail style color lights. So this is not so anyone who thinks that the NS-CSX split was what doomed the position lights, no, that's not. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Conrail was well on its way to slowly phasing them out anyway. And it is likely that had Conrail still been in operation today, that you would have seen a Rule 5, a cab signal without wayside signal program. It was pretty much inevitable as that became a Conrail standard toward the late 90s. If anything, the NS split hindered it. Moving down the line a bit more, and I forget when these. This is probably 2018 or 2017. Here we have the Milepost 132 signals. These are at the east end of the town of Newport. These are distant to CP port. Again, note the 4-track right-of-way, mast-mounted signals, and again the lower head, so that these can display approach limited for crossover moves at CP port. Here we have CP port. This is actually interesting because the track here, which is an industrial track or a set-out track going into the towns of Newport, Pennsylvania, this was actually the original alignment. The original alignment, if you go back to the Milepost 131 signals, the original alignment went straight through town, if they just went straight. But at some point, the PR sort of diverged around the town to get rid of street running and increase speeds. But the little industrial track here was left as a remnant. Here we see the what are these guys? 1 second, I got lost on my script. I know enough of this from, where is this? 128. So here we have C40-9, number 8767. This is one here. Again, it's standard cab. These were rebuilt into the 4000 series AC44C6Ms. And in front of it is this SD70M-2, number 2683. At this point, the 125 NS SD70M-2s are currently in storage, awaiting either probably conversion to an AC or disposal. Only time will tell. Note the track 2, the clear signal indication on the track 2 position light there. And also the extreme amount of rust indicating that NS had pretty much given up on maintaining these, although that is not entirely true, but the signal bridges, they really stopped painting some decades ago. Probably the last time they got a coat of paint would have been in the 1980s when Conrail was still in the habit of painting them silver like the PRR did. Also note the small dwarf signal for the industrial track. Here we have the Milepost 135 distance to CP port on the other side. This photo is one of the ones taken from the cab in 2006. And this is interesting because by 2009, the track 1 signal had been replaced by Darth Vader, and then by 2018, both of them had been replaced by Darth Vaders. Again, I don't know why these masts needed to be replaced by color lights. Something happened. Here we have a picture from 2009 survey from the back of the Pennsylvanian, and you can see the track 1 signal's already been converted to a Darth Vader. Track 2, again, would be converted. I don't know why. Here we have the Milepost 137 with train 43, train 42, the eastbound Pennsylvanian, heading in the rain. I had to do this in rain in all sorts of weather, and this is one of the more inclement days where the weather started wet, and then it got wetter, and then it started raining on me. But I got this nice sort of rainy action photo. I'm pretty happy with it. So it's one of the better photos I have here on the route. But unfortunately, you always had there was always the tension. You could take a photo in the train with the train going away from you with the signals lit, or you get a picture of the train head on with the signals dark. That was always a bit of an issue unless you had a big zoom to hit this, because it's once the train entered the block, it would take a second for the relay to fall and the signals to tap on. At this point, you can see the signals have not yet tapped on. 139 intermediates. These are an example of a signal that, there's nothing special about these, but a lot of the signals in this area were just completely inaccessible. Some of them I could drive to via dirt roads and on state game lands, but this is just one of those that I was unable to get to. I was only able to get to from the back of the train. So usually when you see something that I wasn't able to get to, it really was because it would have meant hiking multiple miles, or having to cross private property to get to the railroad. This is across the town of Thompson. This is across from Thompsontown, Pennsylvania. Milepost 142 with a C44-9W number 9526. Again, it's facing the signal. Signal's not lit. Just some of the examples of some of the angles that you had to settle for. But here again, this is from the nearby bridge. Thompsontown's across the Judiana River, but this is again one of the multiple decent photo locations that has now turned into the real loss is that the signals really made a lot of the photo locations on the line. So this is it's still a nice curve, but there's nothing there anymore to really attract photographers who can camp out on this bridge and get some really nice shots. Here we have CP Thompson. And you can see an NS cantilever replacing the PR mast. Now these masts are both of them right mounted, and this is something that would have been mandatory prior to 1986. Also note down there we can see the new Thompson signal relay hut, and NS has done a very good job of reusing the Conrail style signage. Of course, the reason I picked this photo is that we have the Wabash Heritage Unit number 1070 splitting these signals. Again, it's not the best angle I had, but I wanted to give you a good shot of the new and old signaling. Also note the Rule 5, what it would be NORAC Rule 562, clear to next interlocking signals are on the new Darth Vader hoods. A few minutes later, I did catch a meet here between Amtrak P3 Phase 3 Heritage number 145 and NSC 44-9W number 9837. Again, the picture is a little blown out for the exact same reason. I had the settings for being able to take pictures of the stuff with the sky background, and then when the trains show up, your DSL. I was using a DSLR, and it doesn't give you any warning of that you might have your settings wrong. So I missed a good one here. Moving down the line, we have the Milepost 146. Note that we have the signal posts are equipped with the original finials, the little spiky bits on top, which are a nice touch. But at the same point, at least the ones facing away are SafeTran style signals. You can tell by these sort of modular housings. The main difference between the US and S signal, which are those sort of boxy units, and these SafeTran modules, is the US and S ones actually used a parabolic mirror. Parabolic mirrors are typically not used in signals because when you have a mirror in the back of a railroad signal, that means you shine a light on it and it'll appear that the signal's lit. So a lot of the expense involved with maintaining a PRR or USNS style position light is that there are all sorts of elaborate lensing to prevent phantom aspects when you shine a light directly at them. The SafeTran versions have a dark, basically an all black enclosing with no mirror, which makes the light a little dimmer, even if the wattage is increased. Here we have the 148 Milepost 148 Conrail color lights. Here in a wonderful shot seen with C44-9W number 9347. Of course, you all recognize this. This is the famous Pennsylvania Route 75 bridge at Front Royal, obviously built in 1910. And if you look under, you can see it still bears the scars from the steam era. And of course, behind it, the famous Front Royal position lights, seen here with a typical two-sided mast and then double finialed independent masts. I'm not sure if Conrail was shipping those in from salvage elsewhere. These are not typically the typical height that they would be, but it still presents a little bit of an interesting thing, that you have this sort of split east-west style. Again, this is at the site of the old Front Royal Station. There's steps and stuff that lead down here, and this was a very popular point for photos. Probably still will be due because the bridge was, until the point that the bridge is replaced by something modern, which is probably imminent. Here we have CP Mifflin. This is just interesting. This is showing the westbound signals, and we can just see how the old westbound masts here with the position lights, and again these are the USNS type with the long hoods and the sort of the boxy lamp assemblies, and how they match up with the newer Darth Vader styles turned. You can see the clamshells, the stupid SafeTran clamshells and everything. But again, I just thought this was a nice sort of new meets old kind of thing. In sort of a new meets less new, the westbound signals, or the eastbound signals had been replaced. There used to be a 3-track PR position light signal bridge here that was torn down sometime between 2000. It was before around 2005. and they replaced it with this one in front, this NS-style cantilever. But for the new resignaling, they're replacing it with another NS-style cantilever. If you're wondering why they do this, it's because the main reason that signals are replaced is not necessarily because they're old, although that is often a plus. It's because when you the old style was when equipment was expensive. What a railroad would do is they would come in and they would sort of have to they would have to test. They would do as much testing as they could, but when they had to do the final cutover, they have to splice wires to when they were splicing in new signaling to old signals. You literally have to splice the wires and do a whole bunch of tests, and you have to take the tracks out of service. This way, you can put up the new signals independently, test them independently without taking the tracks out of service, and then on the day, you basically have to crane out the old stuff, turn the new stuff, and then it's good to go immediately. So you save a lot of hours for the contract to do it, and you save downtime. It's the testing is what is why old signal hardware is preferably replaced by new, no matter what the vintage of those old signals are. By the way, I do want to point out even the Vader masts. We can see this one here. You can display an approach medium because at least in the situation they feel between here and front row that maybe there's some short signaling distances. So this one would be trains pulling out of the siding would get approach medium, and if they had an approach at front royal, they would get approach medium to approach. With the new cab signaling system, you might get that medium clear, but your cab signals will just stay at approach medium, so NS doesn't have to actually have to invoke that Conrail diverge over an approach medium thing here. But it is fun to see that even transitioning to color lights, they did have to make they had to replicate what the older signals could do. Here we have the site of the old, here at the Milepost 155 automatics, this is the site of the old Denham coal scale, so the right-of-way expands, and you can see that the NS has used this, or Conrail used this space. So when I say coal scale, sorry, I mean coaling facility. It was a mainline facility for trains to be able to stop and get coal without having to switch out their engines. This was, the PR basically calculated where trains coming from somewhere, probably pre-electric, would start needing to recoal. The automatics here are masts for each of the three tracks, track 1, track 2 in the center, and then a controlled siding. These are done in the pre-1986 style that you had to do by federal regulation, where all masts are mounted on the right-hand side that they govern. You'll even see this on single track lines. If you see single direction signals and two masts straddling the track, that means it's pre-1986. So here we have 3 sets of those. Fortunately, this was another one that was accessible, but I just never had the time to get out there. Mifflin is surprising. When you're doing a day that starts in Harrisburg, getting out to Mifflin takes a surprising amount of time, especially if you have a lot of stops ahead of time. Here we have another. This is an interesting one. This is a 1986 vintage tubular aluminum bridge. This is the dawn of this style of signal bridge. Safe trans signals, again, less expensive to maintain than the PR ones, although we show a little bit of some bulb outages, but the signals are still able to be displayed properly. And I'm not sure what the status of this or the other modern bridges are, but this is the first one on the line, and it's a fairly interesting one because it's, we got 6 signals on it, 3 in each direction. 2 of them are distance to CP Hawstone, this guy there, and this one in the middle facing east. Here we have CP Hawstone with the old PR 3-track bridge, somewhat obscured by the new 3-track cantilever. A lot of the times, where NS would put the cantilever directly up, it would obscure some of the shots. But I wanted to pick this one because we have Amtrak 96 here with the Pennsylvanian, with P42 number 96. Now, if you're eagle-eyed, you will see that the Sugar Creek private car was on the back of the train, which was an added bonus. And an even more added bonus is that I was actually able to catch a meet with ES44DC number 7597 and 7563 behind here with a eastbound double stack train. It was nice. They also had the drum head on the back there. Here we have the intermediates between CP Hawstone and CP Lewis. There's with only one intermediate between the two. This was a bidirectional distant. This is facing the westbound direction towards CP Lewis. And again, both of these were Conrail era. I didn't see any evidence of the signal bridge that got knocked down in this photo, but I'm not sure exactly what happened in the 1990s. But again, both of these are showing their age due to the amount of rust. Here we have an interesting thing at CP Lewis. Lewis is Lewistown, the Lewistown Station. Oh, I'll get into that later. So anyway, it's end of the day, low sun, everything's backlit, and we have a eastbound double stack headed through the Interlocking. Also note the Amtrak station, which is within Interlocking limits. And with the train in the block, the signals will actually, they're approach lit. There it's displaying. So this guy's just displaying a proceed indication for a westbound train. And as soon as, just as the double stack cleared, I was able to actually catch the meet here between the end of that double stack train and C44-9W number 9222 and an ES44DC number 7562. Here coming around the curve at the Lewistown Station. And here we can see this is a picture from 2009 showing the Lewistown Station, which has been preserved. It's actually the headquarters of the PRR Technical and Historical Society, and the entire PRR corporate archives are located in that building. Here we have a version of the Conrail sign that shows the name and the milepost. Typically the most frequently you'll see is just the name, but the name and milepost is a little extra bonus. This interlocking, unlike some of the others, was redone in the Conrail era to have all-electric switch machines. Many of these, I've been forgetting to point out, will have pneumatic-powered machines. Here we have train number 42 again. Here with Amtrak numbered 125 passing the 167 milepost 167 intermediate between CP Lewis and CP Long. Again, this is the only intermediate between two, so it's a back-to-back style signal with lower heads for the approach mediums for both those interlockings. And again, like Front Royal, we have a split independent masts for track 2. For again, I'm not sure why, but again, I'm assuming that Conrail just had some extra signals that they could repurpose. But it is nice seeing that double height there. Here we have some again double height masts for CP Long. CP Long, Lewistown has a bit of a yard, so this was just generally a controlled siding that you could do passes with a crossover on each end, so you could even use. The crossover on each end sort of supports the Lewistown Station. Back in the PRR time, Lewistown was a major stop, and the interlocking CP Lewis was configured to allow passenger trains on the middle tracks to pull over. Here in the Conrail era, they just sort of set it up with two interlockings on either, just with both of these. Again, these are all electric switch machines, but if you see over there that looks like an airline, it's actually a natural gas line for the switch heaters, using the old airline infrastructure that Conrail was able to salvage, probably from some other plants. Here we have the milepost 172 automatic distant to CP Long with sorry, I'm going to go to the next page here. With ES44DC number 7533. I'm going to go and take a quick, that's the wrong thing. You did not do that. Hit escape, get you out of there. Let's see what's up in the live stream. Depending on where, so to answer the question of when you see when you see new signals in the old old relay box. If the old relay box is not, if there aren't new stainless steel ones, NS has. So there's a difference between re-signaling and replacing signals. NS has some of the newer interlockings have not been re-signaled, but they have gotten new signals. Usually this is often where NS is, sometimes they, like I said with that Conrail thing where they're trying to go from diverging. They're trying to eliminate diverging over approach medium or approach slow. So they're going to install those medium approach medium signals. Other times they have been because of the PTC coming, there are places where they were using the signal bridge, the signals to slow trains down. So you'd get an approach slow to a slow clear through a tight, even though it's a straight route, it might be everything is slow speed through that interlocking. And they've been eliminating that to provide at least one full speed route through most interlockings. So, all right, I'm gonna head back to the show right now. Oops, wait, where am I going? Damn. This is a. I gotta do this by file name. I had that by date. Here we go. All right. Again, winner of 2017. Milepost 174 signal at a rural crossing. Note the nice farmland. There were a lot. So this PRR did a surprising amount of grade crossing elimination on the main line. But most of the ones that survive are sort of at the end of very long farm driveways. This is no crossing protection. It's just sort of out in the middle of nowhere. Again, this is your double mast style from the 1986 resignaling. More double mast, Milepost 176. This is the westbound distant to CP McVeigh. Also note the Conrail. The interesting thing is when Conrail would either use the stacks of tie material or the sort of the screwed tube pipe things to create the bases. NS uses concrete blocks or just mounds of ballast. Here we have in another compromise shot Amtrak P42 number 88 with the train 43 passing through the mast at CP McVeigh. Again, McVeigh had the pre-1986 style configuration, but the new masts that are going in are in the left-hand or right-hand configuration. Again, McVeigh and CP Thompson were both Conrail, they were brand new Conrail interlocking. So as they went to the CTC design, there are places where the gap between PRR block stations was longer than Conrail wanted, so they added these infill blocks. They added these infill interlockings with just basically a crossover and some signals. But Thompson and McVeigh are the pure Conrail late 80s inventions. This appeared sometime around before 1986. For some reason, one of the old signals at McVeigh got knocked down, and NS replaced it with this beautiful, brand new, aluminum position light. I like the old mast, but honestly, nothing I like more than this old PL on a new style equipment. I'm not against all old stuff. I just think PLs are better than the color light. And seeing them new and done up like this was nice. Eastbound distant to McVeigh, Milepost 182. Clear signal, and the big advantage of when you're traveling, when you're taking this from the back of a train, is that the approach lighting is triggered, so you can get the full effect. These amber position lights really stood out in sort of dim and low lighting. They were designed to compensate for fog. Again, we have Milepost 184 Conrail color lights. I'm not sure what was here before, but it was probably a signal bridge. Milepost 186 automatics. These are paired next to a hot box dragon equipment, or at least a hot box detector. You can see the infrared sensors and the axle counter right down below there. A lot of the Conrail tended to pair its signals and the defect equipment, probably just to reduce the number of locations that maintainers had to go out to. This is a 1986 photo. The only photo I have of this was not very good, so I'm using this one. This is the Milepost 188 signal distant to CP Jacks in the opposite direction. This is the eastbound. Sometime between 1986 and 1989, NS removed most of the grade markers on the signals. So grade markers would typically upgrade a stop and proceed to a restricting signal for trains over a certain tonnage. All class 1s have currently moved to a what they call restricted proceed, so trains don't actually have to stop. There's no more stop and proceed. You basically just stop with a number plate is going to be restricted proceed. Restricting is restricted proceed. It's all restricted proceed. So they popped a lot of those G markers, and this is a very old style. They might even be PR vintage. But again, this is distant to CP Jacks. Very nice signal bridge. But again, this is just not in a location I was able to. None of all of these past three ones. This one, not this one. But this is all on the opposite side of the river from a road. There was just really no way to get out to these. Here we have the westbound signal bridge at CP Jacks. This is where this is the track in the foreground is where the connection to the East Broad Top, which is that narrow gauge. Double wide signal bridge with the looming Darth Vaders behind it. Interesting thing on the other side of CP Jacks is, well, again, it's another signal bridge, but this signal bridge is very rare, is that it's still in its original Pennsylvania Railroad days configuration. And you can tell that it was replaced early by this cantilever, and you can see the cantilever back there. This went in 2009. When I say original configuration, if you can see past the rust, first off, the two remaining tracks are aligned where the two original eastbound tracks would be. So a lot of times Conrail would recenter the tracks. Here they've kept them in their original alignment. So these signals, this way these signals bridges would work is you'd have two dwarfs on the reverse direction side, and on the non-reverse direction side, you'd have these two signals with this little short walkway. Most of the Conrail modified ones have the walkway going across the whole thing because they've had to move the signals around so many times. Another thing that's very unique on this signal is the lower heads do not have the backing plates. Conrail basically installed the backing plates, but in the PRR days, the PRR was so stingy that they just decided to save metal, so they figured that any train that was approaching an approach medium, an approach, what would turn out, or a slow approach, would be going so slow that it wouldn't need the time to see, it didn't need it didn't need the extra contrast provided by a backing plate. The only time the backing plate was provided was for medium speed moves. Conrail tended to do away with this. It's still seen in a few places on Amtrak, but this is one of the very few that you would still see this on the PR main line. Unfortunately, it vanished in 2009. This is another famous signal location that's popular with photographers, or was. This is the Milepost 193 signals, westbound distant to CP Jacks at Mapleton. Again, here we just see this is actually lit after the Pennsylvanian had passed, and here we see the Pennsylvanian. Again, this time I was actually caught out of position. When the train taps on and lights up the signal, I would basically have what I would call the 2-minute drill to go take pictures of the lit up signals before the train comes. Then you try to take pictures of the signals, and you try to get in position for the train. In this case, I got caught out of position, so I ended up with this sort of backlit, terrible photo of Amtrak number 98. Moving down the line here at milepost number 196, we see the tail end Charlie of a westbound stack train passing again, late 80s PL masts. Also, again, like I said, you have the lumber base there and the screw base there. One more down, the milepost 198 signal here seen with ES44 AC number 8060. And a number of other units behind it, including a SD60E and an ES44DC. If anyone's ever wondering when NS went from the down ration of the 4000 to 4400, that was typically done around 2013, 2014. And honestly, even before they were uprated officially, there was a button in the cab that you could press for extra power. And NS realized that the crews were just leaving that button, it was leaving the extra power activated for the entire trip. So they just figured it wasn't worth it. These ones you may have noticed if you've ever been out there. These are the Milepost 200s. Conrail vintage, I'm not sure what they replaced, but these are visible from US 22, which is right there. These are distant to CP Hunt. CP Hunt, here we have the old Hunt Tower, one of the very few surviving towers on the middle division. The reason that so few towers survive was because they're all made of wood. Wooden towers are a major problem for preservation. They either catch fire, or if they're tried to be preserved, they crumble. Most of these towers were built in the first decade of the 20th century. So by this time, they're bordering on 80 or 90 years old, and they were not really made for the long haul. When the PR was still growing, wooden towers were used because they were seen as replaceable. The railroad was replacing its infrastructure so fast that they would just build what were effectively temporary structures. It just turned out that at a certain point they just didn't really need to rebuild them. But Hunt has been preserved. It used to be a museum, but now it's like it's like the clubhouse for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure how you can get in there. Yeah, of course, in the foreground we see a C44-9W number 9626. Here we go again. NS is doing other things in this recycling project. CP Hunt had an extended length. It had an additional industrial track branching off to the south to serve some sort of prison complex. That hadn't been used in years and was removed. So they used that opportunity to shorten the interlocking. So here we can see the new cantilevers with the heads turned. It chops off about 500 feet of the old interlocking limits. The less interlocking limits you have, the faster. The interlocking length is one of the major factors that contribute to your throughput. The longer an interlocking is, the longer it takes trains to clear and align a new route. So when by shortening it, you actually increase your ability to increase it. If you have conflicting movements, you can get them out faster. If you're wondering what those eastbound signals are like, they were a set of 3 independent masts. Here seen with C44-9W number 9240 and M-2 and 2 M-2s number 2774 and 2749. And if you're wondering what these look like without the train, here you go. Little less. You didn't see it here, but in the intervening about 10 years between 2009 and 2019, a whole bunch of trees of heaven sprung up. Next one is a 204 Milepost 204 automatic, distant to CP Hunt. Like I said, again, this is sort of in the tracks are in these tracks are in the old eastbound alignment. Here we have. This is a 2006 photo that actually captures the moment where a position light signal bridge is retired and replaced by color light without the logic being resignaled. So something was wrong with this signal bridge. NS chopped off the signals, put in their Darth Vaders. These being the 206 Milepost 206 automatics, and the signal bridge lingered a bit until it was eventually chopped down. It is no longer there, but for at least a little bit of time it was. Here we have the 208 Milepost 208 automatics. Now these are not these look like they're distanced, but they are not distanced. They do have the lower head for an approach medium. That was due to some local short signaling blocks, and Conrail decided that they wanted to be able to so trains using it would have a 4-block style signaling. Trains would get approach, medium, approach, and then a stop and proceed. This is another thing. This is the Allison Road Signal Bridge, another popular place for photography, or the Milepost 211 automatic, distant to CP Tunnel. Here we have Amtrak P42DC number 122. CP Tunnel. CP Tunnel is a Conrail constructed interlocking, but takes place where you would have the 2 halves of the main line split to go through the 2 Spruce Creek tunnels. Conrail just had this as is and just put a crossover here, retiring the old Spruce interlocking on the other side of the Spruce Creek tunnels. Like I said, you can see the name poking out there, and this bare patch was where the eastbound tracks would rejoin the westbound. Now, past CP Spruce is where the 4-track alignment turned into a. I think CP Spruce is also the junction of the line to Holidays, the slow route to Hollidaysburg. This is why the right of way was able to contract to 3 tracks. No, again, this is in the pre-Conrail era, but in the PRR era, it was 3 tracks. You can see it's a 3-track bridge. Here we have 2 tall masts distant to CP Tunnel. One of them has the finial. A lot of these were very, very hard to find. Try as I might, I thought there were ways to get out here, but this stretch was just another one that was hard to access. Here again, 3-track signal bridge for the Milepost 118 automatics. And this is a little bit more than 3 tracks, but I'm not sure if it had more than 3 or is just constructed this way. This is the Milepost 221. Most of the signal block lengths were between 2 and 3 miles, so sometimes you'll get, it's like 2 and change. So it's usually every 2, every 2, every 2, and every so often you'll get every 3. NS has been generally lengthening its signal blocks, but not on this line. They kept them mostly the same. Here we have CP Gray at the winner of 2017 with a new ET44 AC number 3648 leading the pack. This has been very new at the time. That's basically a Tier 4 compliant GE. It's taking the clear signal on the I think that's the 4E signal there at CP Gray. And of course we have an NS-style cantilever hovering above it. The other side of the signal was a 3-track bridge. This is basically the start of the 3-track raceway, which has, although it is at this point it's considered a controlled siding, 3 signaled main tracks all the way between here and CP Conpit west of Johnstown. And in the foreground, of course, we have C44-9 number 99447 and another M-2 number 2666. It's a very shame that M-2s were common all over the place. Now they're all in storage at Roanoke. You can look online for photos of those storage. This is the famous Tipton signal. We got a curve with a position light, and this is, every time I came here, there was already people with a truck with antennas on it always watching. Now here we have standard cab SD70, number 2576. These are all currently out. These are out of service, awaiting rebuild into SD70 ACCs. So I chose a lot of these photos not only for the signals, but for a lot of other things that have disappeared in the last few years. Again, even though these are numbered, track 1, track 2, track 3, track 1 is a controlled siding, track 2 is this 2W is a main 1, and this thing labeled 3 is track 2. But, so, try to remember, there'll be a test later. So as you can see, here we have the opposite view of the Tipton signals. They usually send coal trains out on the controlled siding and wait for them to be able to, as intermodals pass, and they'd get the go ahead. So usually this would be an approach. But as you can see here in the background, you got a guy in a truck and watching for trains from the typical position. Tipton was a great place. I visited a number of times, at least probably 3. I think I got out there 3 or 4 times. Here we have. Where is this? The Tipton is Milepost 255. Here we see 9604 and 9399. Oh, wait, no, that's about to take the clear signal heading towards Altoona. And the last time I was out at Tipton was actually at night. I was driving back from Western PA, and I just decided, whatever, I'm here, I might as well pull in. And I got a number of interesting night shots, including this one of a train passing the signal as it drops from clear to stop and proceed. Now, of course, here's the other, a lot of famous ones. This is the famous Historia signals at Milepost 227. These are located this modern signal bridge is located directly in front of a grade crossing, which again made it very popular. Also, this one did not lose its grade markers for some reason. Here we see, what is this? C44-9W number 9128 and another standard cab leading SD70 number 2516. I saw a number of these where you'd have this standard cab SD70 leading out on a coal train. Again, I guess there was just some train master at Altoona that really liked dispatching it this way. Well, not anymore, unfortunately. Also note the approach medium on both these signals. That means that nothing is pulled up at CP Gray, so it's probably the dispatchers waiting to see who's going to get where first before deciding to give somebody a signal. Again, here we see the dual approach mediums indicated where, again, this is a little bit better for the stop at CP Gray. This is, again, shows short signal distances. So, again, they wanted trains, and probably this might have been it might have been a grade issue, a steep downgrade. They want to have trains under control at Tipton, going medium speed by Tipton if they had to stop at Gray. Again, this is another one of the modern signal bridges on the line. This is all part of that 1986, 88, 89 signaling project. This is the westbound distant to CP Annis, and again, this is what I call the triple track raceway. If you're ever on the Pennsylvania and riding in a rear vestibule, once you hit that curve at Tyrone, you're just 80 miles an hour all the way to the station stop at Altoona. It's a really fun ride if you can ever get that hanging out in that vestibule. Here we have CP Annis slightly before it was resignaled in 2012. Seen here with an SD70 M-2 number 2771 and an oil train under the signal bridge, the 3-track signal bridge about to be replaced by cantilevers. CP Annis is where 2 tracks split off to go to the Alto. I'll show you. Hold on a second. Note in the foreground we have an older style position light dwarf. The newer ones have a single backing unit, which makes the bulb replacement easy. The older ones have these little, there's one on the side and one on the other side, which make it a little bit harder. That's why the PRR. But this indicates it's a very, very old signal, probably pre-1930s. It's been sitting there probably since the 20s. Or sorry, pre-1940s. Of course, then we have the eastbound signal bridge at CP Annis. The two main through tracks are here, and we have two tracks on the other side which run through the Altoona yard. And note at this point, this one was signaled straight through, so this one would turn into the controlled siding. So he is able to get a straight clear. This one would just come out. This was was anticipated as an eastbound track and only has a dwarf signal for westbound movements. Annis at this point was used pneumatic point machines. You can see some there, and there's a compressor house for it. The Annis Tower having long been demolished. This also marks the start of Alto Tower's control territory. Alto had a CTC machine that had control from Annis down to CP Works before they got to Alto Interlocking proper. Here we have CP Homer. CP Homer is in service on track 1 only, but on track 2 there was an automatic mounted on this Penn Central style tubular cantilever mast. It would be automatic milepost number 234. Homer was basically governing movements out of the Rose Yard for any trains that weren't coming out down the route to Annis. This is where a hump yard used to be that's now been out of service for some time. Note the clear signal on the whatever the 2E signal at Homer, and of course the replacements getting ready to make it less nice. Rose Interlocking was not a mainline. Interlocking was located entirely in Rose Yard. You can see, for some reason I didn't take pictures of it. I don't know why when I was there in 2012. But you can notice the airline for the pneumatic switches at Rose. Rose was completely eliminated and no longer exists as an interlocking, but that hut and that sign are still placed. This is a crew change point. When NS revamped how it does its helpers, instead of tying them on at Alto Tower, they now tie them on for trains will stop between Annis and Alto, and helpers will tie on in this area. So that's where there's a little helper base. They can also do flying crew changes here. I think that Harrisburg to Altoona is a single crew district, but I'm not entirely sure. Here we have the Judiana locomotive shops at CP Works. 3-track signal bridge, 2 signals for the main tracks as a dwarf behind those cabinets. Note the lineup; those are probably all helper packs, or there's something stored. I'm not entirely sure. Again, this photo is from 2009. Note the Conrail locomotives in the getting ready to be rebuilt or repainted on the shop tracks. Another view of CP Works. This have been from. This is in 2012. This is when Works was being reconfigured for with the current, in the Altoona resignaling project. Over here we have what this was in 2012. This was still main track 1 and 2, and this is a yard track. Today this has been reworked, I believe, into this is main 1, main 2, and main 3. But main 1 ends at CP Works. Some helper packs. Also, switches have been converted to electric. There's the old Works relay hut, and then the new one. And of course, they're replacing the position light dwarfs for the yard track with these masts only showing slow speed routes, though. This is a 2004 photo. I think it's the oldest one I have here. I took a little trip to Altoona, and here we see the westbound Pennsylvanian train, train 43, lined up on getting a medium clear on a pedestal signal onto track 3. Back before the Alto replacement, track 3 started at this point. It used to be, you can see a Conrail painted locomotive in one of the helper pockets, and then at Alto Tower. So this is an Alto controlled signal, medium clear to a clear signal at Alto Tower proper, and then way down there's a third clear automatic at CP at the location of CP Slope. So this shows a gray rainy day and how the PRR position lights really shine through. You can see 3 signals all the way down. Switching now to 2012. We have the same old nickel plate. Certain heritage units seem to follow me around. Here we have the nickel plate. This is the first heritage unit I actually photographed. It was not long after it was released from Judiana shops. It was probably within a couple weeks of nickel plate number 8100. passing under the Penn Central era beam-style signal bridge at Alto Tower. In the PRR days, Alto interlocking was a slow-speed interlocking. Trains would go down, navigated at 15 miles an hour through the station complex, then speed up. During the Penn Central and Conrail era, those were replaced with full-speed signals to ease things. Also note the pneumatic switch machines. You can tell by the piston, and there's a valve controller unit right there. Again, this has all been straight railed, and so this track, this used to be you'd have the two main tracks and track 3 started. Today, these go through into tracks 1. This is track 2. That's track 2, 3. Track 2, they go all the way through, and then this track 1 will go through to CP Works. So they realigned it. So this is a through track, this is a through track, and that's a through track, and these are yard tracks. Here we have Pennsylvania Railroad 120 on one of Bennett Levin's fall charters before Amtrak first took over the operation of fall charters and then canceled fall charters altogether. I did 2 trips to Altoona when it was being resignaled. The first one was in conjunction with the Bennett Levin round trip from Harrisburg. I figured I'd have better photos line side as opposed to riding it, and I had to get to Altoona anyway. So again, I'm sure everybody on those trains had fun. If they ever run again, I'm definitely going to do it. And here we have the April 2012 photo. This is going to be fall 2011. This is April 2012. Here we have Alto Tower, repainted by NS sometime after 2009. They're given a slapdash coat of paint. It's still standing, but I'm expecting it to catch fire. It is property. It has been sold, donated, kind of transferred to the museum. And here we have the Pennsylvanian again, Eastbound Pennsylvanian. Eastbound Pennsylvanian is a lot earlier than you might think, and the Westbound Pennsylvania is a little later than you might think. And here you can see the new signals for CP Altoona going up. This is a nice zoom shot of the eastbound approach to Alto Tower. And at Alto, you have the 3-track configuration, but it's using the only bidirectional track is this middle one. So this is a Rule 251 West, Rule 261, Rule 251 East. And again, these high signals were put in to replace to allow full speed movements through the interlocking. And then we have the original signal bridge for Alto Tower. And note this sort of ladder configuration was designed to, initially there was a helper pocket there and a helper pocket there, so trains could come up, stop here, and then have a helper couple right on. The problem is that the increasing length of freight trains means that trains would be on the grade before they could get stopped, and it became impractical to tie helpers on at this location. So they basically now stopped them earlier on to do the helpers. This entire complex is now gone and straight railed. So this track goes to that track goes to that track, and that track goes to that track in through the yard to CP Works, but that's still signaled, so it counts as they count it as the main track. I'm going to hit escape here and see what time I'm at and see what's going on with people. How's everything going? Yeah, the new, I brought this up earlier. They typically would do that at interlockings. Interlockings have to be, when you redo them, they have to be sort of basically tested. The test of replacing stuff at an interlocking is very, very high because you have to test the whole thing. CP Banks had a interlocked high car detector. That means that trains routed to across the bridge would have double stack clearances. Trains routed into a yard would have lower clearances. Because it was an interlock detector, NS couldn't change the recording from the Conrail recording until now, because even changing the recording would mean the whole interlocking would have to be retested and recertified, and that's very expensive. So they would, at automatics, that's easy to test. They would chop down the position lights, replace them with color lights. At interlockings, they tended to replace with position lights, because it was a like for like. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going on. I'm making pretty good time here. Remember that 119? I'm showing 119 on my counter, but I probably had about 10-minute delay on this. So hopefully I can get done by 2 hours and 10. All right, moving on. This is CP Slope. CP Slope's in service on tracks 2 and 3 only. This is part of the this is sort of part of the Altoona complex in that it had a switch to the yard lead, and a switch from eastbound track 3 to center track 2, because Alto interlocking lacked that. So this would allow trains to effectively going east to access both main tracks past Alto. One second. Anyway, here we can see the work being done on CP Altoona. CP Altoona is pretty much an uninteresting 3-track crossover that's not even interleaved. It's dull. It had a helper pocket, but like that they've partly taken it out, or I don't know what they've done with it, but it's just stupid. Also, here we see the eastbound helper parade. Helpers are needed in both directions to provide dynamic braking force, or a lot of times, if not, they will come and run light. So here we have an active helper helping this train down, and here we have a helper pack that's waiting to be able to get access to the yard to go back to the helper base. I have some videos of that happening. It's pretty neat. Check the channel. Here again, we have a light eastbound helper. Sorry, I didn't announce the numbers of that other one, but whatever. This is NS uses helper packs based on pairs of SD40Es in the 6300 series, this being 6305. These are rebuilt SD50s that were downrated to 3,000 horsepower. I see a lot of these are in matched pairs, as you'd see like 6305 and 6306. I think that there's one of the train masters at Altoona has OCD. But here we can have the CP slope signal bridge. Again, slopes only active on tracks 2 and track 3, but then there's the new CP Altoona bridge, which is all 3 tracks, and it's just a crossover, and you can see one of the new crossovers right there. So, by the way, slope is controlled from panel in Altoona, an Alto tower, or was. Here we have, so until this point, we've been on using the Conrail signal designations, where you'd have milepost and an E. But here we've now cut to the original PRR signal numbers, which is just a milepost with a 1/10 difference in each direction. Amtrak still uses this in the NEC. So here we have the milepost 236 signal, but in the eastbound direction, it's mile 236.4, or it's number 2364, which is milepost 236.4. The other direction would either be 0.5 or 0.3. This is that Bennett-Levin trip that went up to Altoona, went around the loop, came back down, and went back to Harrisburg. So I managed to come out and catch it here at this. This is the distance signal to slope and Alto. And it said it's known as Brickyard because it's next to an old clay brick, literally a brickyard. Also notice this is effectively unre-signaled. These cabinets, I believe, are PRR vintage. The cabling was all cloth and tar. So you've gone from 1980s signaling. Well, again, Alto is built in 1912. But it's been redone a bit. But this is 40s, still 40s vintage. And this was and Conrail only closed the towers in '94. I'll get into that later. Here we have a very old style signal bridge. It's more, you can tell it's more latticey than this. This is the 2398 bridge. The other things here I think went to do something with a dragon equipment detector. Those are out of service. These were replaced between 2006 and 2009 with a Darth Vader cantilever, but again, they did not re-signal it. The relays were left the same. I don't know why these are replaced. Block length in this area is up the east slope. This is the slope. It's going uphill from Altoona now, and signaling has been reduced to 1 mile blocks. Here we have the milepost 240 signal. Again, a lot of the signal bridges have this sort of odd ladder arrangement. Instead of going up the front, they go up the side. This again was also replaced between 2006 and 2009. In the 251, 261, 251 configuration, trains on the 251 tracks would not light up the opposing signals. Fortunately, in this cab view, well, this is a head-end cab view, but if you're on track 2, you will get the both the signals to light up. This is the signal that used to be visible from the horseshoe curve. This is the, what is this? What am I doing here? The 246, the Milepost 241.6 signal. And you can see this was also replaced in 2009. And you can see the new base for it right there. I do not know why they replaced these and not others, but something was up with these. Here we can see the replacement. It's a very long and awkward cantilever. Unfortunately, this is not the greatest photo, but look what you can see popping under that. It is Wabash Heritage Unit number 1070, SD70 Ace number 1070, and it's paired with a now stored C40-8W number 8350. These, I don't know where they are, but these are all also under storage. The rebuild efforts being canceled. 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes later, also at Horseshoe Curve, passing under the 241.6 signal, we see Central of Georgia Heritage Unit number 8101. So I had a very lucky day this day. This was back in the fall of 2018. And I got, in one day I had that NS barcode, 2 heritages at Horseshoe Curve, and then another heritage you'll see later. Continuing up the curve, we have 1 mile beyond that, the Milepost 242. This is distant to CPMG. This again was also replaced in 2009. You can sort of see the base over there. Here we have MG Tower. MG Tower was constructed in the 1940s as a capacity expansion for World War II. MG stands for mid-grade, so it's basically split the grade. It added 1 extra set of crossovers, and even after in the years of declining traffic, it has been maintained as an active interlocking. And at this point, you can see the airline for the pneumatic switches. That it's a 3-track full crossover, and this airline provides the air pressure for the switches. Here we have, if you notice, this signal bridge is the World War II 1940s and beyond style PR bridge with these solid steel corner pieces. This is a very well preserved example. Unfortunately, it was taken down. Again, note you have these aren't original configurations because these tracks were realigned, but you still have the lack of the backing on the lower heads. You have a clear signal for track 1, and then reverse directions just have this little dwarf because again, only the center track is bidirectional. Milepost 244, distant to CPMG. You can see how many times the signals have been moved around based on how the ladders have cuts and odd bits and bobs in them. The 245, Milepost 245 signal. This used to be at a location known as BF Interlocking or Benny. That interlocking was removed in the Conrail era when like the mule shoe curve. It was just basically it was just seen as redundant, whereas trains needed less helper activities, and the junction of the mule shoe curve went away. But these things here would have been actual home signals for an old interlocking. There's a number of locations where there were old interlockings that are now been downgraded to automatics. This is just an infill signal. It's here because of completeness. This is the Milepost 246 mast on track 1 only. This has been now replaced with a cab signaling location. The line now basically has 1 mile cab signaling location, has 1 mile cab signal blocks the entire route. Here we see through the tunnels we have AR Tower. AR Tower. This is on the track 1 side. The track split. 2 and 3 go through the Allegheny Tunnel. Track 1 goes to the new Portage Tunnel. Track 1 is pretty much westbound only because the eastbound grade is something like 2.8%. Here we see the new westbound signal on track 1, which most people predict will not see a lot of displayed signals. But AR Tower was closed in the 1990s. Both AR and MG towers were open through 1994 when Conrail closed all the towers between Altoona and Johnstown. Up until that time, it was a completely tower-controlled stretch of railroad, with Alto passing off to MG, to AR, to SO, to C. Here you see behind AR Tower on the famous Altoona loop tracks. Not a lot of helpers loop on the loop tracks. They usually follow the trains down to the grade. You'll see that later. But here we have an example of a new post-1940s PR position light, which tilts to the right, and an old PR position light, which tilts to the left. Both of these are in the NORAC rulebook as independent signals because they present differently. At some point, I'm assuming that all the left-handers will be gone, but they're still around in places. Also, we have the Westbound Signal Bridge to CPAR, or AR Tower. AR Tower also had in its interlocking machine controlled BF, SF interlocking, and UN interlocking. So it had 4 interlockings in one interlock, or 2 interlocking machines. There is a signal here pulled up on the middle signal there. I'm not sure what track that is. Track specifications get a little wonky in this area. Again, no heads on the lower, no backings on the lower head. This is also, if you notice, both these signals, the main line tracks condensed to form to a single track through the tunnel, but both of these signals can display a clear. That's because it's an equilateral turnout. You do track speed through both directions on the turnout. The other ones are low speed only, which is why this high signal can only show slow approach and restricting. AR, as I said, on the other side of the loop is CPUN. Here we see the interlocking hut for the relay hut for CPUN, along with another left-hand facing dwarf signal. Here we have a helper pack with SD40Es number 6304 and 6317, cresting the slope and now helping the train go down. Here we have a picture of the westbound signal bridge on track 2. Track 2, again, instead of being reversible, track 1 having a distance signal closer to CPUN. Whoops, what'd that do it? This is a cute little 2-track signal bridge. Back before Conrail, when before the signaling was rationalized in 1994, this would have had exit signals on it in both directions, which is why they put up the PRR put up a signal bridge. Here we have another notable signal location. I think this is by the PA 64 bridge, and we see SD70. What is that first thing? SD70M-2. Oh, this is the the Milepost 249.3 signal. It's westbound direction only on tracks. The tracks are different here. I need to look. I'm going to make a note to look that up where I am tomorrow. But we have another M-2 number 2646 and a C40R-9W number 9358. This is here we have a different view of this. This is distant to CPMO. You can see the new PA54 bridge and the old PA54 bridge. Here we have CPMO. CPMO was involved in that 1994 signaling. Now, this did get all new Conrail signals. I believe that they sort of did this in phases. They re-signaled CPMG and kept the position lights. They re-signaled CPAR and UN and kept the position lights. And by the time they got to MO, they just didn't do that anymore. MO, first off, they had to they were removing a bridge for the double stack clearances, and that was used as a signal bridge, so they were already having to dump those position lights. So at that point, I think they just made a decision to get rid of all of them. MO has a rather odd layout. It goes all the way back down there with phantom middle tracks. There's your air. MO Tower used to be right there by the air conditioner hut. MO Tower was slated to be preserved and put in the Crescent Railfan Park, but when they tried to move it, the tower literally fell apart. This was in the early 2000s when it was attempted to be preserved. It was a wooden tower, and that's what happens to them. But also note, even with the resignaling, they didn't bother with replacing the dwarfs. I mentioned that I saw three heritages in one day. Here we see the OG-NS unit number 8114 with another C44-9W number 9204, about to take a medium clear signal at MO and cross over to track 1 east. This is from the Crescent Railfan Park, and it's a real shame that MO Tower was not able to be preserved, because he would have been able to go into it right here. This is another very old style lattice mast. This probably held semaphores at one point. This is the Milepost 252.6 signal. Here we have the famous Lily signal location. As you can see, I'm sure you've all seen photos from here. This is Lily, Pennsylvania's claim to fame, and here we have a high rail truck driving down the old missing track right of way with 2 clear signals pulled up on the Lily signal. Note the SP plaques that stand for slide protection, as these protect a slide bridge at the Cassandra Cut. Here we have a reverse view of a double helper pack of 6300 series SD40Es passing under the Lilly signal bridge in the eastbound direction. Again, sorry for the blown out photos. It's that same problem. I do a video of this, by the way, online. Check the channel. Another old style lattice badge. Here we have an example of offset signals where the eastbound and westbound signals are not located at the same location, creating a bit of a overlap. These are the... I switched the page too early. These are the Milepost 256 signals facing the world famous Cassandra Cut and famous Cassandra Overlook, located all the way down there. I don't even know what to say. I've run out of gas here. One second. You can see these are on the original configuration too, because the walkway only extends over the first two tracks. So this is pretty much unchanged from its 1940s configuration. These are paired with the Milepost 257 Jamestown road signals, here seen with an SD70 ACE number 1106 passing underneath. These are really neat because that's a road bridge, and you can get right up close and personal with these bad boys. PLs are way bigger than you think. They're small when you look at them, but when you get right up close, they are huge. Hopefully, I'm not sure. These are gone. Hopefully, they found a new home. Note the trailer on flat car train, but yeah, this is a really great location as well. It's odd. A lot of people go to Cassandra, but I honestly consider this bridge to these guys to be a much nicer location, at least back in the day. Famous Lilly. These are the Portage Signals. This is one of the only. I'm not sure. These likely replaced a signal bridge back during the one era of Conrail resignaling, but it was early enough that they dropped in this sort of center track. This was after 1986 when these got replaced, but before the point where they would replace it with color lights, so you have PLs on masts. These are the Milepost 258.8 signals at Newport. Remember, now note we have gone back to basically pretty every 2 to 1 mile. We did have that 1 mile thing here where it goes to 250, 258, 257, 256, but then it's 254, etc. Anyway, here we have the first shot of a C44 AC44C MC6. Those are a rebuilt C40-9 standard cab, and now they're getting rebuilt C44-9Ws here with a whole string of other power behind it. Milepost 261.2. These were replaced by a Darth cantilever around 2013. I can only assume for structural integrity purposes. Here we have the famous. Everything's famous. This is like the PR. This is like Pennsylvania's rail fan heritage corridor. Actually, it's called the rail heritage corridor. There's signs on the road. This is the famous viewing location at Summerhill, Pennsylvania. Passing under it is an ET44 AC number 3671 paired with a CSX C40-8W. So you have some of the newest power, some of the oldest power, number 7862. Now the reason you have this odd configuration of these signals on signals is because when the state put in a new road bridge, it blocked the signal bridge. So they had to elevate them to improve the sight lines, and as you can see, their efforts were successful. Clear signal here on track 1. This is a picture of CPW. CPW went in with the SO Tower. I think it was SO Tower. It might have been earlier. The SO Tower resignaling in 1994 to 96. At this point, Conrail had basically given up on even. They're just replacing. They're just going full out replacement. So going from from Altoona to Johnstown, you can see Conrail changing from keeping the old signals to at least replacing them in interlockings. CPW is simply the end of a stub track that goes down to the South Fork, whatever that secondary is that serves a bunch of coal mines. So you come off the Y track and you sort of you get a running start and you rejoin the main line here at CPW. Clear signal on track 1. This is the distant signal to CPW on that stub track. We can see a coal train sitting around waiting for its chance. I'm not sure if it's parked or waiting for its chance to get on the main line. And this is just a pedestal distant signal. It does convey block information, but basically a train coming off that secondary track with a heavy load of coal is going to know if they're going to have to stop or not. And this is right in the town of South Fork, Pennsylvania. Here you can see the context. The new distant right there, the old pedestal with that nice giant old sign and the stingy new NS sign, and passing it on on track 1, we have ES44 AC number 8146 and ES44 DC number 7251. The ES44 DCs were the last DC power NS bought in the late 2000s. NS was basically... Oh, sorry. What did I... That's not right. Oh, crap. I need to be making notes of stuff that's wrong. Oh, crap. That's a 70 ACU. Gotta fix this. Remember, this is, for anyone listening, this is a practice session. So I gotta make notes. I've been neglecting to make notes of the stuff I was getting wrong. Alright, anyway. Newport, Summerhill, CPW, pedestal. I forgot to explain pedestals. I need to be looking at my notes more. I really should be. Pedestal, whatever. You guys don't need to know pedestals. So anyway, that's some sort of SD70 ACU. Those are rebuilt from SD90 Max. Moving down, SO Tower. SO Tower was closed again in the 1994 era resignaling, 94-96 era resignaling. Unfortunately, it was... Conrail was good enough to leave MO, SO, AR standing. Unfortunately, moments before my survey in 2009, SO Tower burned to the ground. I have kind of a picture of the rubble, but I just wanted to show you this picture showing just what's left of it. It's basically Japanese knotweed. By this point, this is in mid 2018. They had come through. NS had replaced the pneumatics here with electrics. You can see the pneumatic plant. The compressor huts and reservoirs right there, and those compressors and reservoirs were still there. So only basically SO burned, and the plant was fine at that point. As you can see, SO was completely resignaled. There was a lot of odd signaling at SO Tower. You had some exit signals. It was just weird. And by this point, Conrail was just like, we're done. We're not really interested in we're just going all out with new stuff. So this is, at this point, Conrail's gone full in with color lights in around 1996. Also, between this point and Johnstown, NS did a micro resignaling and made all tracks rule 261 in all 3 directions. So you can see this N261 sign. This is where it goes from that single bidirectional to all 3 bidirectional tracks. Here we have an example of the one of the intermediate low signal locations. Again, this was put up by Conrail in the late 90s. Conrail style signals, modern style signal gantry. This Darth Vader one is when NS made it bidirectional. All very, this is the wave of the future. The port into the future and the past. Second, this is also very long signal block lengths. They're about 3 miles each. So this is milepost 268. Here we jump to milepost 271. Over here behind the coal train is AO interlocking. This was part of the Johnstown terminal, originally controlled from C Tower, but also featuring part of the original AO tower. AO had a pneumatic switch. The compressor was in that 1-story building. That's actually the bottom of AO Tower. At some point the top got popped. That's still there today as far as I am aware, even though the switch is electric. Here we have C Tower. C Tower is made out of cinder blocks because the original C Tower was demolished by derailment in the 1950s, replaced by this. C Tower was closed around 2003, and however, NS kept it with pneumatic switches and Conrail signals. I'm not sure if this was actually resignaled, so this might actually be the same. Here we can see again, when Conrail did its resignaling, you see it keeping, they did a lot of weird stuff with like a phantom track right there and a lot of odd crossovers. Johnstown is really not probably seeing as much traffic as it used to be. It's not really a hub with a decline in coal traffic. And of course, here we see the eastbound Conrail signals into what is now CPC, with the 6304 helper. By the way, C Tower was demolished sometime after 2000, not long after 2009. So there's nothing there anymore. CPJW, again, I just want to point out this was controlled from C Tower. It's now independent, but also I just want to point out that how NS is using these the Conrail style signs on Conrail territory. Here we have another post-war signal bridge, Milepost 275. With the Jamestown Station in the background. Jamestown Station only serves track 2 and track 3. However, track 3 is you're going to see what it's going to do. It's going to do its own thing. So they really don't like running trains on. So basically, Amtrak is pretty much restricted to track 2. If they go on track 3, the train takes a 15-minute hit because it goes off on its own little lollygagging direction. That's a really nice picture I got of the signals. Light was right, sharp for my older digital camera. It looks really good. Again, going to full Conrail era, Milepost. We're back to the Conrail style numbering. This is the 277E, 1E, 2E, and then here's the 3-track with a little mast. Conrail did like this cantilever plus mast setup on its 3 tracks, and it's just went all out with giant cantilevers. The track 3 goes across the river. It's basically like the Turkey Path near Reading. And so now we're track 1 and track 2 are by their lonesome, with track 3 all the way. Are together, and track 3 is all by itself across the river. This is the Milepost 280 signals. We're back to this bi-directional masts. This is the last. Again, these are. We're gonna get past. This is a late 80s resignaling effort. Same here. The Milepost 283 track 1 and track 2 signals. And we also have the Milepost 287 track. Oh, sorry. And then we're gonna cross the river to the Milepost. I gotta switch these numbers. Oh shit! I didn't do it. I needed to. I forgot to. All right. What's going on? I'm pausing real seconds. I gotta correct an error. Okay, that'll fix that. Anyway, again, Milepost 286, track 1 and track 2 signals, both with defect Dragon Catbox, Dragon Equipment Detector, and AEI readers. I hope I don't kill my voice. Cross the river, Milepost 287 signal. All these are distant to CP Conpit. This is again, track 3 is single track, just a little mast there. Here we are at CP Conpit. CP Conpit it's exactly what it says on the tin, is the junction between the Pittsburgh Line and the Conemaugh Line. East of this, you have 3 main tracks for the Pittsburgh Line. East of this, you have 1 track for the Conemaugh Line and 2 tracks for the Pittsburgh Line. They take sharply diverging routes. This train wants to go Pittsburgh Line. They got to cross over from the track 3 over to track 2 or track 1. By the way, if this looks familiar, it's because I'm really gonna look at my notes. It's ET44AC number 3671 and CSX C40-8W number 786026. The same ones I caught at Summerhill. It just shows that using Route 22 is a lot to get between these two between Summerhill and Conpit is a lot faster than going down to Johnstown. Here we have a nice view of the westbound track 2 signal at CP Conpit. Is it track 2? Yeah, it is. Showing a clear indication. This is the 8W, the 8W signal at Conpit. The way the signals were generally numbered, and I probably should have done this earlier. I forgot. I missed my notes. Conrail style signal switch and signal numbering. Signals are even numbers, switches are odd numbers, and they go sequentially from 1 to an appropriate number. So you have switch 1, signal 2, and then signal then has a direction. So it's switch 1, signal 2E, signal 2W, east and west, switch 3, signal 4, switch 5, signal 6. Sometimes if switches are paired, you'll get a dash. So it'll be signal 2E-1, 2E-2, etc. as needed. So that's how that works. Also, for a brief period of time, NS was installing its own signs at some interlocking. See this one? It's an NS green, southern green sign. They went back to using the Conrail style. Here we have a C44-9W9242 passing the 2 westbound PR mass signals at Conpit. These actually got moved around a couple times, but I thought they were going to get re-signaled, but they weren't. I'm not sure why they got moved around. If you notice that little thing next to them with a C, you've probably seen them on some of the new signals. This is your Rule 280A clear to next interlocking indication. It's for when trains have when you're entering cab signal only territory, so there's no block signals. If a train has failed cab signals, this gives it basically absolute block authority to proceed to the next interlocking. Proceed as if it were basically a clear signal the entire way. So you don't have to slow down. They don't have to approach hand switches and prepare to stop. All they have to do is proceed to approach the next interlocking, prepare to stop in case it's not a distant. This is an original PR configuration of the C. It's that square. It's a PL unit, and it's on this odd bracket. This was installed in the late 1940s as an experiment, and then Conrail picked up the practice in the 1990s. One of the more interesting things I discovered on one of my little trips was the SD70M-2 from the Florida East Coast, number 106. I think that they got rid of these for some GE power. I'm not sure what they're currently up to, but I saw this. This was in the fall of 2018. Here we have another an empty auto rack train with a ES44 DC in providing power. Over there is the Penn Central era signal gantry. Note the slab I-beams for the Conema line. Better view of it. Conema line used to be 2-track at this point. That's why this is a gantry, not a mast. You can see where the old signal used to be. They just blanked it over with some angle irons. But Conema line was signal tracked in the Conrail era. And like I said, it was a PRR experiment to put on that cab signaling only thing. I have to assume that this gantry was cut down, but again, I don't know. Continuing on the Pittsburgh line, we are now back to PRR-style signals. This whole stretch between here and Pittsburgh was re-signaled by Conrail in around 1980, but they kept the PRR convention. So remember, Middle Division was re-signaled by mid-Conrail, and this part was re-signaled by early Conrail. So here we have the Milepost 292 distant to CP Conpit, and once again, anytime you see those circular ones, the color lights, that was a Conrail, So because this was pre-1986, nothing was done on a mast. It was all done with signal bridges. They kept the original PR signal bridges. But those, as they failed, in the 90s, Conrail would come in and put these color lights in. On the newer part of the line, they were able to put in mast position lights. If that makes sense to you. I should probably check on what people are talking about in the old chat here. Not much, but I got 10 people watching for some strange reason. Okay, Milepost 294 color lights. Again, there were a lot. So if you remember the Middle Division, there were a lot of those position light masts. There were more masts than signal bridges. Here, they didn't have that mast option like they did on the Middle Division, so they kept all the signal bridges, and then in the 90s, they were all basically falling down. So there are a lot of these. You're either going to see a signal bridge or you're going to see color light masts. Here are more color light masts at Milepost 294 with an auto greaser and a hot box dragging equipment detector there. I need to get the names of those dragging equipment detectors. I'm going to write that down as a note for me. Another one, again, failed gantry, Milepost 296.4. Also note, in the late Conrail era, you had the Core 10 huts. Early Conrail, you go with these traditional style cabinets. So you can, again, it's part of the point of the documentation is it shows the evolution from the traditional style signaling to today's, and all the steps it took between 1980 and like 2005. So these here are the Milepost 298 masts, and these look different, and they are more modern. These were put up in a very brief period of time after the NS takeover, but before NS standardized on the Darth Vaders. So between 2002 or 2003, 99, 2000, 2001, NS was still installing non-hooded traffic lights like on the Harrisburg line. And here, because the local signal guys probably were told you got to use the Safe Train catalog, but they were all Conrail holdovers, and they're like, well, let's use the Safe Train version of target signals. Don't call them G-heads, please. That is a specific model. These, not anything round is a target. If it's a General Railway Signal Model G, then it's a G-head. That's New York Central only. This is different. Anyway, so there are a couple where these are put up in the very, very early NS era, like 2000. And you know they're not painted, but they're in that target configuration. This is the distant to CP pack. This is here we have a crummy photo of CP pack, but it's showing a brand new AC44C6M number 4118. Again, I just was having bad camera luck this day. I don't know why, but everything was blurry. This is the best I had. But it's so fresh out of GE, they haven't even painted it yet. Here we have to give you something a little bit better at CP pack, here we have the Eastbound signal bridge, a signal pulled up on the 2E signal for a clear, and then we have the SP for slide protection. This is just a dump track that goes nowhere. Milepost 302.4, distant to CP pack. Milepost 304.4, color light automatics with another dragging equipment detector that I got to note down. These are the famous Milepost 307 signals at Derry, home of that some sort of railfan cam. And a lot of people pissed off when were upset when these got removed because they would see them every day. Here we have another AC44C6M number 4133 coming under those signals, and in the opposite direction we have C44-9W number 9651. Now, Derry, this is another indication. This used to be a tower, DR interlocking, and then it just turned into an automatic signal location sometime in the early Conrail era. There were a lot of oddball interlockings in this nearing Pittsburgh because there's a lot of local industry, and they just need a lot of towers to switch that efficiently. Also, a lot of lines coming in from coal mines. Next one is the distant to Trobe. Milepost 310. I call this the one that got away. This is a 2006 picture, if you couldn't tell. This was a very accessible signal. I mean, it's fairly accessible, and I just did not. I had the opportunity to see it. I just missed it. And by the time I was in an opportunity, but by the time I noticed I had missed it, it was gone. So this is I have regrets, and this is one of my regrets of not getting a picture of this guy. Here we have the westbound signals at Trobe. This, again, if you should know it, note that steel corners. This is a World War II signal. This also had offset signal heads, which is something I don't really have a good way to describe, but I'll probably hit that at the end. Note the Latrobe station. There are platforms on both sides, but I think Amtrak is restricted to stopping on track 2. Here we have a nice little arts photo of the 6E Dwarf. Off the Latrobe industrial track with C9877 and another CSX C40-8W number 7892 in the background. This is taken the summer of 2018. And same lash up, just with another AC44C6M number 4031, going under the eastbound signal bridge at Trobe. Trobe was KR Tower that was then turned into an automatic location under early Conrail, so under the Penn Central, then restored to interlocking status under Conrail as part of their CTC project. They were trying to space interlockings 10 miles apart. Eastbound distant Trobe Conrail style signals at the milepost 315 clear on track 1. Here we have signal 318.4 with a double stack train from my 2019 survey. Kind of crappy, so I'm going to throw in this other nice picture of it from 2006. Here we have the famous Greensboro, Pennsylvania signal, frequently photographed from the station. This is a Penn Central gantry, and the reason it was put up is they didn't have, remember, they had to use all signal bridges. This is the site of SW interlocking, was basically declared defunct during this time. interlocking was removed. They didn't have any signal bridges for it, so they had Penn Central had to put up this I-beam jobber here with the little lollipop guys. There were a lot of these I-beam signals out on the Fort Wayne line. I'm pretty sure this is Penn Central era. You see these. There were some around Buckeye Yard and stuff, but there's the only ones left are at CP Hick because NS put new signals on them. But otherwise, they're taking these down too, despite being an I-beam. And of course, I got to get that picture in. You got that zoom shot of the famous Greensboro signal location. Note the terrain. Railroads are not as flat as you might think they are, and zoom lenses bear that out. The train here involved is NS C44-9W, number 9678. Oops. Wait. Oh, what did I do here? Oh, that's right. This needs to be gone. Sorry, folks. Let me delete that guy. This needs to be gone. That's, again, why I practice. CP Raid had its westbound signals replaced with those sort of early NS signals with the round targets. I don't have any photos of them, but I do have this wonderful shot of the eastbound signal bridge with a clear signal on the 2E. This was pneumatic interlocking through this point in time. Here we have a light helper pack with SD40E number 6325 drifting east to push again. Another one of those, I said, early NS signals. This was also a very notable location up through about 2000. Now, I remember when these were replaced. I think it was replaced about 2003. There was a guy who did a lot of night shots of the position lights here. And then when these came in, I'm like, well, at least they're not Darth Vader's, because they were starting to go in elsewhere. At least they're Conrail style. So these are pretty much the last of this type that you saw going in. I guess someone told the signal guy to stop it, or he retired. Oddly enough, this crossing has been recently removed. I had the opportunity to get to this one, kind of, but I just didn't have time that day, so I just let it pass. This is a 2006 photo. I'm rapidly losing my voice. I got this one. It's a shot of the Milepost 330 color lights, but here, this is a couple months before they were replaced, about 3 months before they were cut in, and you can see that NS already has the new, they have new signs that say SIP and a milepost for signal indication point. And all the stuff that's getting scrapped has been hit with the yellow X's. In the background, we have the bane of the railroad's existence, the Pennsylvania Turnpike Bridge. Here we have, now this used to be an interlocking, I forget which one, I got to look it up. I'll make a note of that. Still got to look this one up. Anyway, here we have passing under the 332.7. Interlocking with C44-9W number 9680 and ES44AC number 8147. Moving one down, we have the Milepost 334.5 signal with ES44AC number 8160 and SD70 1040. So it's the tax unit, NS tax unit. CP Traf. It was at some point had a late era resignaling. I'm not sure what was there before. It had some odd PRR masts and cantilevers and something. It's the west end of the old Pitcairn Yard. Pitcairn was the PR's main Pittsburgh hump yard. In the late 90s, it was replaced by a brand new intermodal terminal, and Conrail swooped in and basically did a little fix-up on the interlocking. Here we have the 2E signal showing approach, and of course the Traf sign here. If you look back, there's the relay hut is pretty giant, indicating that it got new signals but was not re-signaled. And out of frame here is the airline going to the compressor house. A lot of these Western interlockings with a lot of switches it wouldn't just have little compressor cabinets. They would have their own compressor houses. Here we have, where is this? 9857 and 9510 passing by that the very large relay hut. Again, this is in the early 80s. This is not microprocessor. These are all relay interlocking plants. So the more complicated they are, the more stuff they're going to need in there. And this one's got a pretty big one. Here we have the new exit signals for the Pitcairn Intermodal facility. This is really what they're going for. They wanted to upgrade some. They probably just wanted to have realigns. I don't know if they did realignments, but they wanted to just signal things better and probably get rid of low speed switches. Here we have helper pack number 6312 and 6308. After they basically got the helper operations here, basically today they run, instead of having them cut off on the loop, some of them do, but most of them don't, or cut off. I mean, they can cut off at the loop, they can cut off at Crescent, they can cut off at Johnstown, but I see a lot of them will roll all the way down to Wing and Traff, stop there, the helpers will detach, and then they'll continue on, and it's probably done by at what point can they have a slot to send them back. So they probably will just keep the helpers on until the dispatcher says, take them off now, I can handle it now, and then I send them back. Here we have at the other end of the Pitcairn yard, and these interlock Wing, Traff and Wing, CP Wing are back to back. Here we have the westbound position light masts at CP Wing, back sort of with a background of the Wabtec or Westinghouse Air Brake Facility headquarters in Wilderming, Pennsylvania. And we can even see, I'm not kidding when I say it's the original Westinghouse air brake company. That's what gave George Westinghouse his money, being able to stop trains with wind. And he said it's just nice because USNS, which made these signals and made these cabinets and made this stuff, they were part of Wabtec, or used to be. They were basically USNS was a Wabco, Westinghouse Air Brake Company subsidiary. It's no longer that, but it was. So this is sort of a corporate family portrait here. Other end of CP Wing, we have 3 tracks. This one here in the near thing is the Port Perry branch. Port Perry branch is a low-grade line that avoids the downtown Pittsburgh area. Not really low-grade, but at least low curves and low, going through downtown Pittsburgh is a bit of a low speed. Port Perry branch lets double stacks. I don't think downtown is also rated for double stacks. This lets the double stacks flow around the downtown. It goes across the river to the south side, then comes back and across the OC Bridge. You probably have pictures of that bridge at CP Isle. It's that giant, it's a bridge. Hard to describe. The C44-9 number 9904. We're getting. I don't think it's possible. They did not get to 9909, 9999. It cuts off a few short. And then these are currently getting rebuilt, so it will eventually be impossible to catch the latest numbered one. Moving on, we are now entering the zone of the Pittsburgh Busway. This was, again, done in the late 80s, resulting in the right-of-way being reduced on half of the right-of-way. So the most of the signaling was replaced with Conrail era. On my train, even though I was in May, the Pennsylvania arrives at 8 o'clock, so I was seriously losing light at this time. Here's a 2006 one. I believe this is a morning photo, and here you can definitely see the busway and how it's taken off. It's unfortunately taken off 2 of the 4 tracks. So even if there's a resurgence in rail traffic in this country, we're not going to get that PRR 4-track main line back, unfortunately. Again, these might have been put in. I don't know. They look like Conrail, but they don't have the backing paint that Conrail often was. So I'm not sure if these were early NS or not. Here we have CP Home. Westbound signals at CP Home were mounted on this pedestrian overpass, so you could get up there and again get up close and personal. This was all sort of done in the early '80s, and all the signals were SafeTran models. They were some of the earlier versions of those. Other end of CP Home, we have a helper set that had just cut off a train. They will cut off anywhere between. I've seen them get cut off at Traff, Wing, and here. Here we have the helpers. This I told you this is an OCD Trainmaster. This is number 6331 and 6332 coupled together, and I've seen a whole bunch of these sibling pairs. CP Home had an extra it's the Pittsburgh area Y track. Every day the Pennsylvanian will Y here. Anything that needs to be wide at Pittsburgh will Y here, and the north end of the Y is actually interlocked as part of CP Home. You have the other part. This leg is not over on the left. Is not interlocked. It goes back to the main line on a hand throw. So trains will come up to Home, reverse under signal protection to here, reverse again under signal protection, then do a hand throw to get back to Pittsburgh. This was known as the Brilliant Branch. Brilliant Branch is the equivalent to the Port Perry Branch. Port Perry Branch would bypass trains around the south of the city. This would bypass trains around the north. Today it's an industrial track. The bridge is still there, but it does not connect through to go around. This part of the interlocking had its own air supply, and it did have a pneumatic switch. It was this little independent air plant. And I'm not even sure if this is interlocked anymore. It's probably all hand throw now after the resignaling. The only picture of I have this picture of this Darth cantilever, the 350, Milepost 350 automatic, because I actually don't have a picture of there were two position light masts here, back-to-back masts of the late 80s style. They were there in 2003. They were gone by 2006, replaced by this. Note that both Westbound signals can only display approach medium as their most favorable indication. At this point, because of that slow speed 15-mile-an-hour curve at downtown Pittsburgh, Conrail decided was using the signaling system to slow trains down. Your cab signals would drop here to approach medium. They would stay at approach medium until going to approach slow. Then you'd have a slow speed signal at the curve. We're going to show you that later. CP Bloom. Bloom is the connector track that allows the Capital Limited access from the B&O to access the PRR. It also allows various short. So here we can see the Pennsylvania reversing to that Y move. So I have another picture of the guy, but there's a guy doing the reverse move at the back, and they're moving like 30 miles an hour, reverse moving all the way to CP home, which is about 4 miles east of the station. So it arrives, discharges 4 miles east, runs reverse, Ys, and then runs reverse again back to the station so it can be ready to pull out the next morning. Here we have the mass signal coming off the Bloom connector, can display approach medium because it's back-to-back with CP East Pitt. Here we see the Allegheny Valley Railroad, SD40 number 3004, 3002, and 3001, passing the Bloom Signal Hut. This is every day this train sort of heads out. The AVR inherited a lot of the old B&O trackage that CSX discarded, and it also has trackage rights into the island, I think it's the Island Ave yard, past CP Penn. So it runs out of here to Island Ave where it interchanges with NS. By the way, these used to be former CNW or Missouri Pacific SD. These were former SD45s, but they're SD40s now. Here we have another M-2 number 2626 passing the westbound mass signal at CP East Pitt. CP East Pitt, or especially this signal, I believe, is the east end of cab signal territory. First off, I want to point out that this signal is in the middle of a parking lot. I guess they literally have an easement for this signal in this parking lot. These are spaces. And then there's a signal, and then there's more spaces. One of the most accessible signals you can probably get to. Two, interesting thing when cab signals and other safety systems like automatic train stops have to be abandoned. And railroads are, at least up until now, Conrail really didn't want to put them in because then it's just basically, for a while railroads just did not want to install more of that stuff. They were a headache. FRA wouldn't let them remove it where it was, but they weren't having forced to put it in. So in the old days, the entire Pittsburgh terminal was a low-speed interlocking. That means dwarf signals 15 miles an hour, pit interlocking low speed. In 1980, when this was all resignaled, they raised the speeds, but because the low speed terminal basically had no cabs, it was all 15 mile an hour. That's all no code. The cabs stop here, not at Pittsburgh Station or somewhere else. They just stop because Conrail they didn't need to, no one was forcing them to put them in, so they didn't because you'd be dumb to. At least from a point of view of maintenance and stuff. It was just an extra hassle. So this is the west end of cab signal operation. Here we have again East Pitt with a clear signal for eastbound trains, but we have Amtrak number 94 at the head of the Pennsylvanian again. This time arriving in Pittsburgh. I keep catching that. I've caught the Pennsylvanian so many times on these trips, and here it is. And here again, we see downtown Pittsburgh. There's the old PRR station head house, CP Pitt right there. And there's the PRR station. Still has the PRR Keystone on the side facing the street. And that's the 1950s shed. Like I said, it used to be that CP West Pitt was only slow speed, so the best you can get on this signal is a slow approach. Now, even though the Pennsylvanian is not moving beyond the signal, moving beyond, so CP West Pitt was, so I'm saying it's cleared through, but still the best thing it can get is a slow approach. Today, with the resignaling, it will now get a clear signal through. And here we see the Pennsylvanian taking that slow signal, moving into the Pittsburgh station. View from the end of the platform of the Pittsburgh station. This is CP Pitt. CP Pitt's in service only on track 1, and these here are the 2 station tracks with dwarfs. This is an old siding for helpers. There was a helper base here at Pitt, and you have the main track. This is then signaled by a Penn Central or early Conrail era signal-like arm, a cantilever made of a tubular mast. In NS period, they discontinued this track here, went from being a siding to a stub. These are used for private car storage in the Pennsylvanian overnight. Here we have Pitt Tower. It's now a police substation. At the time I've heard this was the largest Union Switch and Signal Model 14 lever machine ever installed, something around 300 levers. It was also one of the latest installed in the early 1950s. Again, once the PR found something it liked, it really liked it. This was then again, it was taken out of service around 1980, turned to a police station, and it's one of those things you don't even know it's there until someone tells you that that's Pitt Tower, and then it's totally, oh yeah, there's a bay window and everything. West Pitt was removed by NS this is pictures in 2003, sometime I think before 2006. Here we have those dwarf signals showing, this is for the Capital Limited departing, the Westbound Capital Limited departing Pittsburgh early in the AM some morning. This is all ice. This is a bitterly cold day that I got this picture with CP West Pitt. But as you can see here, CP West, there's nothing there. I mean, I need to add a photo here. Hold on. I'm going to make a note to add a photo of the missing West Pitt. Couple things important to note here. CP West Pitt's gone, but the sign is still up. This is the end of the Fort Wayne Line Bridge, and they have a whole bunch of surveillance cameras to keep trespassers off. When West Pitt was removed, it was replaced by a NS Darth Vader mass signal, Milepost 353. Also note the Conrail modern style terminology 353-2E. These can trains are hit with the approach slow, and then they don't get a slow clear. They get a clear signal on this mass signal. The last thing I want you to take a look at is this 0. This is the dividing line right there at the start of this bridge between PRR lines east and PRR lines west. This is 353 miles from the end wall at Suburban Station. And then the mileage resets and then counts up to whatever it is at Chicago. I think it's like milepost 500 or something. So here you can literally see, even though the PR has been gone since 1968, it is the physical manifestation of the way the PR divided its corporate structure between lines east and lines west is still there today. Oh, and there's also an old airline for West Pitt. By the time when that West Pitt was retired, the only thing here was just that one switch off the siding. I think through the 80s or something there was more. Again, this was a full-on terminal station thing that just was not used anymore. Last signal, which we are across the river, even though this is technically sort of, it's off the mileage, but it's the end of the Pittsburgh line. Here at CP Penn. CP Penn for Penn Ave in Pittsburgh is where the outer tracks are the Conema line, the center tracks are the Pittsburgh line. Wait, did I get that right? Maybe it's the other way. It might be the other way around. I'd have to look that up. I need to make a note of that too. I think the center tracks are... No, the outer tracks are the Pittsburgh line, the center tracks are the Conema line, and they join together to form the Fort Wayne line, which will then run, which used to run all the way to Chicago, but basically now they run to Alliance and then get on the Cleveland line and then get on the Chicago line. That's how it goes. But here we see SD 80 Mac class leader number 7200 taking the signal at this sort of truncated dwarf signal gantry here. One thing I also want you to note that this is used the example of the PR stepped signals. These lower heads are advanced. So the upper heads are right on the platform, and the lower heads are unmounted in front of the platform. They're not on a single mast. So it's sort of like I said, it's a step design. So there's some of these left on the NEC, but they're pretty much extinct off the NEC now. That finishes up that's the end of the presentation. I have some backup pictures. I got to add some more stuff. Let's see how I did for time. We are at 2:20, so about a little over 2 hours. I'm hoping maybe tomorrow I should probably just cut down on some of the PR stuff. I got to follow my notes more specifically and not go too far into sort of general PR history, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, I think I can get this done in about 2 hours. I've been told that that's when people start to nod off. So hopefully it won't be through whatchamacallit. But anyway, I'm losing my voice. I gotta make some changes here. I don't think there's too much I can really cut for time, but I will look through and definitely see that. I hope you all enjoyed it. This video will be around again. It'll get put up at some point. And thank you for watching. Anybody have any questions before I go? Yes, I'm going to be streaming all this week, although I might not stream tomorrow because I might have a voice issue. Talking for 2 hours has not been good. I need to be able to talk for 2 hours on Monday. So I might not be on tomorrow. I might need to take that off, but I hope to stream every day this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights, although, again, Friday might also not happen. So I'm going to see what I do tomorrow. I might just try to do a short one. I'm feeling my voice is about to give out here, and I really cannot. I need to be able to talk come Monday. So anyway, thank you for watching. Again, questions? Anybody have any questions? Discord notifications. What? All right, I guess that's it. So no one has any questions. I guess that was thorough enough. Anyway, thank you for watching. This will be back up online. I mean, I will post this. So have a great night. I got to get going. See ya.